came to that point, that's where I just started drawing again and feeling really re-inspired by home and by just wanting to, you know what, I don't know what I'm going to draw, but I'm going to draw myself. I'm going to draw Hawaii. I'm going to draw beautiful things because I need to get myself to a very happy place.
Yeah.
And that's going to take me there, you know?
No, I really appreciate you taking the time today in your busy schedule to, be here and just walla out and talk stories a little bit with me. But like I told you before we even started, how I first came across Punky Aloha. It was when my wife sent me this Instagram post and she's, I think you like this artwork. And I was like, oh, that's kind of like my vibe right there, And so I went down this whole rabbit hole, and I was just like, one, I like the color palette you use. Two, just the vibe that you share, And when I started seeing your work to start popping up everywhere, I was just like, wow, this is something that, I can connect to more, because there's a lot of murals out in Hawaii and everything. Not to say I don't like them, just that like they're nice, pleasing to the eyes, but for some reason your work just hits me a different way, And I remember I bought your book when you first, the Punky Aloha book, and my youngest sons just like, they love it. And we read it to them, like sometimes like, oh, can we read Punky Aloha? And there was a piece of work that we got from you. And I remember it was a surprise for my wife, and it was that morning brew one. And I just put it up someplace, and then she saw it, and I was like, oh, what do you think? She's like, just looking at that makes me feel calm. And I think that's kind of what many of us out here in the islands especially feel when we see your work. We feel connected. We feel like there's a deeper connection to us, not only like visually, but also spiritually. Like we kind of gravitate to that work. Even though it's just like how you mentioned, it's like very simple shapes and forms, it just, something about it just has it. And I think it just exudes out from what the work you do, So I appreciate you taking the time today and to just talk stories. So before we begin, can you just take some time to introduce yourself and where you come from and so forth?
Of course. Mahalo for having me. My name is Shar Tuiasoa. I am from Kailua on Oahu. I've been an illustrator. Well, I've been a freelance illustrator working professionally for 4 years, something like that. I don't know, since 2018. But I've been doing art my whole life. Illustrator, and I love what I do.
Nice. And we made that connection. I'm also from Kailua too, so that's also kind of a cool thing. This is our first time we actually get to meet.
Yeah.
I remember I messaged you here and there, and you always kind of like share some of the stuff that we do on Cool Project.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And I was just like, I gotta. When I had that whole idea of starting the podcast again, I was like, I'm gonna get Shar. I'm gonna try and see if she can fit us in. So I really appreciate that. And as an artist, like my family comes from an art background too, and artists and everything. And my parents are constantly painting, and they love to be creative expression, And it always starts from a memory. So can you just kind of share like one of your first memories of when you got into art and just like, this is what I love?
Yeah, of course. I was really lucky, and I grew up around art. Because my mom was also an artist. And so when we were kids, she used to take us to her art classes because she couldn't get a babysitter. So we would go to her art classes over at WCC, which is a beautiful college, as we discussed. It's a gorgeous place. And she was studying under Snowden Hodges, and she would bring me to class, and he would put me in the corner with some crayons and a sketch pad, and I would just draw while he taught the class. And I think that was my very first introduction into seeing art and being around it. Seeing adults do art made me kind of look at it differently. Like I kind of was like, oh, this is like a very serious thing that they're into, that they love. And I want to do this all the time, So that was kind of, I feel like I've always had a crayon in my hand, eventually turned into paintbrush and charcoal. Now an Apple Pencil. Been around art my whole life.
Can you remember one of the first artworks that you did?
Well, when I was little, I was kind of like wanted to be a comic strip artist.
Okay. Oh, that's cool.
Like comic strips, like Calvin and Hobbes and The Far Side. So my very earliest memories of making art was always making like characters and drawing out stories of like the day to day, you know, just making silly pictures of my friends or like why I got in trouble. You know what I mean?
Calvin and Hobbes whole thing.
Yeah.
You know, it's so funny. Like I grew up reading Calvin and Hobbes, and I remember my oldest brother, who's an artist. He likes to draw and everything. That's all he drew. Was Calvin and Hobbes. Like I remember in his bedroom, he just like went off on his walls on Calvin and Hobbes. And my mom was like, "What are you doing? It's on the walls," you know. But it came out pretty good though. You know? But then, you know, like from there, like, you know, when did you realize that art was something that you wanted to actually like pursue as a career? You know, has it, or what? Because, you know, you grew up around art, your mom was in art and everything, and you know, we go to school, we kind of figure out, we go to the whole thing of like, okay, what are we gonna do? You know?
Yeah.
I'm sure you approach that question when people ask you, so okay, what's next for you?
Oh yeah, of course. You know, I think I continued to love drawing, right? Sketchbook always with me. I'd be like, you know, at our table at the cafeteria and I'd be like showing my friends, like, look at this, you know, fairy that I drew. Isn't it amazing? You know, I think everyone always knew me to be the artist in my circle of friends. But then after we graduated, it was kind of like a lot of us, we just were like, well, what are we going to do? Like, we're going to party, you know, like we're going to go to grad parties and we're going to live our best life. And so like, I continued to study art at WCC, but very loosely, and I just didn't take it very seriously, but I was always doing it. But I was also, you know, living my best life at the beach, at Sandy's, you know what I mean? And like partying it up. And then eventually it kind of like came to a point where it was just like, okay, you need to make a decision here. Like, I know you love drawing. Are you going to really pursue this? Are you going to take it seriously? Or are you just going to like do whatever you want, you know? And I feel like there was a point kind of in my 20s, so like maybe a little bit of a later start for some, but in my 20s where I was just like, no, I want to take myself seriously. I want to take art seriously. I want to see how far I can take this, you know?
Yeah. Was there a moment that caused that conversation?
There was. There was. And it was a moment. Geez, it's a very personal story. Yeah, I know. Okay. It was a moment I was sitting at a bar with my one of my close friends, and it was in the middle of the day at the Pully Lanes bar.
Pully Lanes.
And I just remember I don't know, I didn't have any direction. I was sitting at the bar and, you know, all the older regulars in there, the bartenders, you know, fairly old too. And I was just thinking like, if you just keep doing this, Shar, you know, this is going to be your life. Cause I was also bartending at the time. And I just remember having that was like a wake up moment. That exact moment was my aha moment. Like, Shar, tomorrow you are like putting together your portfolio. You're going to do this. That was the moment that I switched. Yeah. And yeah, I'll never forget it.
and for me, I like to call it the cool moment. You know, it's like that moment where you just kind of dig your feet into the ground and stand up and be like, okay, this is not, I'm not going to stand for this anymore. Yeah. You know, and since you shared that story, like I don't share this story very often about my moment, right? I was actually living in New York at a time, upstate New York, far away from home, you know, and I remember I was stuck in a blizzard and I was alone. It was like, you know, I was just didn't have nobody around. And I went to go work out just to kind of get out of the house, but it was a snowstorm going on. So you know, I can't drive. My car's stuck in snow, but maybe I can catch a bus. So I actually walk up to the street in the blizzard and wait at the bus stop. And I remember just waited there, like in the snow, like not a soul in sight. But then I don't know how long I stayed out there, long enough where I felt pretty numb, you know. But then it was like that moment where I was just waiting for something. Mm-hmm. You know, but it was that moment where I was just like, that's all I've been doing, just been waiting, you know, waiting for an opportunity, waiting for the bus to arrive to take me someplace. Yeah. You know, and that's actually when the Coup project started.
What a poetic moment. Right? Wow, I love that.
Like, so, I mean, I can get personal too, because it's those moments that creates the changes that lead us to where we are today. Yeah. Right? Like, I didn't know at that moment, I was like, start Coup project, you know, started writing, started creating things that day. And then here we are talking stories, you know. Wild, and that was, to be honest, that was back in 2010.
That's crazy. That's when you were either this way or that way.
Either going to continue waiting, and it's just how you are. You're continuing down this path, you know, that I see myself going, or for me, it was like, am I going to continue waiting for something to come, or am I going to create something for myself?
Right.
and start taking action.
Exactly.
I think that's what we both end up doing.
I think so. Yeah, it came to a point where it's like, I'm just gonna carve out the life that I want.
And I think for many of us, sometimes when we come from this background where it's like, this is easy, we can just go cruise, hang out. It's also a scary thing, because I come from a background where it's like, you gotta no be all tantaran, no make shame kind of a thing, so you don't want to put yourself out too much. You want to stay humble, but at the same time, like, well, in order for us to get to a certain place, we have to put ourselves out there. So you kind of go to that internal struggle,
Oh yeah, for sure. You think it's a little bit shame to be like, say, hey, listen, I'm gonna go out and I'm gonna do this, and this, because if you don't do this, and this, that is, you feel like a failure almost. And even doing something that seems a little bit like out of the norm for me, it was like, I'm gonna go to art school. You know what I mean? Like, I didn't know, like, I don't even think I spoke that out loud to anyone other than my family, and maybe my classmates or something, but it's something, you just kind of feel it, you feel like this is the time, this is the path I need to take, I'm being called to it.
So you mentioned you went to art school. Where'd you go to art school again?
I went to Laguna College of Art and Design.
And that was did you focus only on illustration, or that kind of you open up a little bit more?
Well, so at WCC, which I was there kind of loosely for a while, I was doing all like fine art, oil painting, charcoals, figure drawing. So like I had this crazy love for like very like academic, traditional arts. Laguna College of Art and Design also teaches really traditional, academic, observational art, but they also have illustration, game art and stuff. And I kind of was like, well, little Shar, childhood Shar wants to tell silly stories and, tell stories, visually tell stories. I want to do comics or characters. So I think I was just like, no, I want to do illustration, I want to have a lot of fun with this. I want to learn all my skills, but I want to break those rules. And so, I went and studied illustration. I got my degree in illustration.
Nice.
And
then after you did that, what happened next? Because that's always a question. They're like, okay, you got a degree. Now what?
Right. They don't really tell you what to do next.
They don't tell you what's next, right? They just kind of get the degree and then you're free.
Yeah, exactly. Nobody ever does know what to do. It feels like they don't quite prepare you for that. They give you all the technique, but then they're just like, go figure it out now, you know? And in my situation, I had actually, my senior year in college, busting my okole for like almost 5 years in this art school. And my very last semester, I got pregnant. So I was like my senior year, pregnant. I was going to be due like during finals week. Oh, yeah, which I was like, I can't believe I've like put all of my soul into this and like sacrificed so much only to be like, like pregnant and like out of my brains. And so I ended up just kind of pushing through. All my classmates are like, Shar, we'll support you. You can do this.
That's awesome.
So ended up giving birth, going into labor during finals week. The very last week of school is going into labor. I was in labor in the hospital, emailing my teachers, like sending them my final papers and stuff. And my boyfriend was like, Shar, you're crazy, like calm, they'll be fine. I was like, no, I've come this far,
I'm sending it.
Yeah. And I gave birth and then released from the hospital 2 days later. I was back on campus, like turning in my final paintings, going to my final critiques, like, and my friends were just like, go home, Shar. And I was like, never.
That reminds me of, it's so funny, all these parallels, because that reminds me of when we had our first son, who's also 7. Same as yours, right? When he came, my wife went into labor, I was like, okay, let's go to the hospital. The hospital, take your time. And my wife had like a small little business side, and we had some like boxes to send. So she's like, okay, well, before we go to the hospital, we got to go to the post office and drop off the boxes.
It's all good.
And we got to do some errands. I was like, no, we got to go. She's like, no, we got to send this out.
I love it.
But for me, it just shows like the strength is like the determination,
Yeah.
And it just kind of like, that's just who she is.
I love that though, that's that spirit in you, it just, you can't see anything. You're like, I'll figure it out. I'll get there, but you just got to kind of be a little bit resilient. To me, I mean, I don't suggest people do that. Yeah. I was like, couldn't see any other direction. Yeah. I just was like, I've gone this far and I'm going to finish strong And then you graduate, and then you don't know what to do with yourself.
And that's kind of where we go, right? It's like same thing. I
Yeah.
found myself at the same situation. It's like I graduated from college. I was kind of like, okay, now where do I go? You know?
Exactly.
And that's kind of where that whole cool moment kind of came across,
Yeah.
right? But then, so you came home then.
I did come
Yeah.
home because, my boyfriend, my now husband, was like, at the time, he was, he's also Hawaii boy. He's like, grew up, Waipahu in town. And he was just like, there's no way we're going to raise my firstborn son on the continent. We are going home. And I was like, okay. I guess we're going to go home
Yeah.
then, we'll figure it out. My path in my brain was always like staying on the continent in California, finding work somewhere in LA, because I thought that's just what you do with an illustration degree. I didn't know any better, but I was just like, whatever, we're going to go home and we'll just figure it out there. I'm going to go back home to the place that I love. So, it's fine. Yeah, that's what we did. I didn't know it was going to be such a struggle when I came home, but I came back.
But then, and so when did it all happen, and when did Punky Aloha start?
Yeah, so it was crazy. When we came home, it was just, I didn't know what I was going to do, right? We were like, again, like living with our families because we were fresh back. He didn't have a job, or we didn't have any savings. We're just like, we're just going to come home. We have family. We're going to make it work. Yeah. Living with his parents, then living with his grandmother, living with my mom, and like, which is good. I think generational living is the way to go. That's amazing. But we're like, I come from a big family, and our home was crowded and chaotic. Our bedroom was tiny. It wasn't like we had like Ohana units or anything. You know what I mean? It was just really stressful, and so grateful to have had that support. But it was really stressful, just like on our relationship and just on like the way I was started to look at myself, because, you have this new baby, which, anybody can tell you that when you have the first baby, you have kind of like you don't know, like your whole identity gets wrapped up in just keeping this baby alive and being a mom, and you kind of forget there's other parts to you. Yeah. So forgetting that kind of made me a little bit, I felt like, well, what am I going to do? Like, this is what I do now? I just stayed home and don't contribute, don't get to use like anything that I learned at school. And we were like, we didn't know what we were going to do next. I just know that we didn't have any money. We were living on welfare, which is so incredibly helpful to have had, but it was hard for me to like think like, I think I'm supposed to be doing something else. I think I'm supposed to be like, I don't know, like doing art somehow. I just didn't know what that was going to look like. Mm-hmm. And I think we just got to a point we were just so desperate, so out of money, that it was just like, you know what, I'm just going to try. I'm going to do something. This is like a few years after I had come home. So there's a few years of just being completely directionless again, like much like I was in my 20s. I just felt like, oh, here we go again. I found my way out of that hole and I'm just right back in it. You know what I mean? So yeah, it kind of came to that point. That's where I just started drawing again and feeling really re-inspired by home and by just wanting to, you know what, I don't know what I'm going to draw, but I'm going to draw myself. I'm going to draw Hawaii. I'm going to draw beautiful things because I need to get myself to a very happy place. And that's going to take me there, And that's kind of how it started, really just doodling around and eventually telling people like family, like, hey, I can do some art for, whatever, some money, hire me, auntie, whatever. I could do logos, and started very small by just doing like side jobs. Like that's kind of how it started. Awesome. Who knew where it was going to go, but that's where it started.
And I think that just shows that, your resilience, when you go through those ups and downs, those trials and tribulations, those obstacles that you got to figure out what to do. Yeah. Because it's so easy to just kind of just sink back down. Yeah. Right. It's very easy to just be like, okay, well, this is how it's going to be. Yeah. I'm not going to follow what's what people are telling me I'm telling myself I should be doing. It's kind of, I'm just going to just do this instead, So I think that shows just your resilience.
Yeah. And I think every like step along the way, I kind of had little moments where I was adding like life experiences to like my toolkit, I guess you could call it. You've got these toolkits that you kind of collect experiences and knowledge in. And I think even one moment I was having a down moment, like we're, on EBT and WIC. And I remember telling Kelly, my partner, I was like, I'm so embarrassed to like go to the store and like, you have to use your WIC checks, and it's a shame, and like you're keeping the line up and everyone knows that you don't have any money, and I was telling my sister about it, and she stopped me and she said, Shar, do not ever feel shame or apologize for feeding your family. And my sister is like kind of like our guidance counselor in our home. She was like a single mom of 3. Her husband had passed away, and she was just always just like this force, of a mother, of a nurturer. And like she kind of set me straight at that moment. I remember thinking like it just kind of like shifted my brain for a second. I was like, you know what? No, I'm not going to be embarrassed about doing what I need to do to feed my family. And I put that experience kind of into my toolkit, and I still use that one like more step, like, okay, standing tall again, like I'm going to do, this is what I need to do to get to where I got to go. And yeah, I think along the way, there's just these tiny little micro moments where you just like, okay, another thing for my toolkit,
And I think that's such an important lesson for people to understand, is to be more aware of those moments, and of those people. Yeah. I think making sure that you are aware of the people in your life who are the ones who kind of give you that guidance, and aren't afraid to tell you what you need to hear, not what you want to hear. But it's one of those things where people don't take the time to be aware of those things because we get so just busy with the day-to-day things. We lose sight of those stuff that matter to us the most. And I kind of want to go direct back into the artwork, because the thing about your artwork, like as you mentioned before, was just like you wanted to just start painting more colorful things, more things that brought you happiness. Because as I mentioned before with you, before we started talking, was that I think like art can be also a very difficult and challenging area to go into because art is also an expression of yourself, and you put yourself out there for people to see, and like you kind of just like, and it's up for people to just think about what they think about,
Yes.
So, so when I first saw your stuff, as I mentioned before, is like I felt directly connected to it. One is like the color palette was just drawn to me, and it the simplicity. I don't want to say it's so simple, but it's also just very it's a very direct.
Simple. That's a great way to put it. I think that's direct. That's another good one. Yeah.
And then was that color palette always like in your, or that style that you do now always like in your toolkit?
No, it was not. No, that came, I think, well, maybe, you know what? Maybe it's always been in there, but I didn't quite express myself with that color or with that subject matter until later on in life. Yeah, I think I started off really just innocent kid, just always being really, I gravitated towards darker stuff, but darker, happy dark, Tim Burton happy dark, you know what I mean? That was what I always loved, and I think that kind of falls in line with visual storytelling, right? I loved the animation world, and I just I liked this like different universe that Tim Burton had created, and that was a big part of like the art that I used to create. So different from what I do now, and I feel like I was creating very honestly and genuinely back then, and I still feel like what I do now is like who I am, the essence of who I am, and I'm creating very honestly and genuinely now, or I wouldn't be happy doing it, you know?
And I remember one of your posts that you shared on Instagram was that you had like a picture of one of your illustrations, and you shared that you use yourself as a model, And I thought I was like, that is so awesome, because it just shows like your connection to the art even more.
Absolutely.
It's like all the pictures you see in there is basically me,
Pretty much.
And I think that just shows like how you can be resourceful,
Yeah.
Because a lot of times, like I know some artists are just like, oh, I don't have this. They always think about what they don't have, And I always try to tell them like, don't think about what you don't have. Look at what you do have and maximize it.
Yes,
and
exactly.
then it'll just go from there. But don't stop at I don't have this.
No, hello. Pasifika people, we are very resourceful. Hello.
Yeah.
It's in our blood.
So Can you remember the first time that you were kind of commissioned to do a mural? What was your first mural you did?
Oh, well, I think I did some here and there before. Even in art school, I did a really fun mural. They had a mural class.
Oh, cool.
But that was like more of a team effort. I didn't even get to design it. I just like painted like a flower that was on the mural. Anyways, but as like a business owner, as like after having put myself out there as a working illustrator, the very first mural I did was not that big. It was in a tiny little t-shirt store in Waikiki, called, I don't even remember the name of it. I don't even think they have the store anymore, but wow. It was tiny. I don't think anyone had seen it. And then in 2020, right before, it was like early 2020, before 2020 was what 2020 became.
Yeah.
They did a powwow.
Oh, the powwow.
Yeah, the mural festival from Jasper Wong, Jeff Gress, and Kamea Hadar that they put on every year that is just incredible. They fly in all kinds of like these like superstar muralists and artists, street artists, and they also have a lot of like local artists. They give them walls and get to experience this just crazy week of painting and art and connecting with and making friends. And in 2020, Jasper gave me my first wall next to Kate Wadsworth, who's one of my closest friends and in the illustration world. And I didn't know what I was doing. Kate had done a few, and she's like, "Sure, it's just a big painting." I was like, "Okay." So
no, it's a big wall.
It was, we had like scaffolding, and I was freaking out, and I was like seeing like, people that I've admired for years just walking around. I was like, "What? This is crazy." So that was my very first, like, I'd say like real mural. And from there, I think I got a lot of murals after that. Yeah.
Going back to that powwow thing, like, what did it feel like when you finally finished that whole wall and you step back and look at it?
So gratifying. You know what I mean? Like, because it starts off really scary. Like, I don't know if I can do this. I don't think I'm good enough. I'm going to embarrass myself. And then you just kind of have to start doing it. You don't have a choice. You've signed up for this, you know? I think that's the lesson I've learned throughout art is like, you just jump in, just kind of have some sort, you have to believe in yourself.
Yeah.
Even though you're physically, you hear your mouth saying like, I can't do this, but you have to kind of believe in yourself, think that the impossible is possible. So I just did it, I jumped in, did the best I could. And I was really, really proud of myself looking back and like looking at the wall, like, wow, you little human made this big, beautiful thing.
Yeah.
And it was an incredible experience.
And I think that's such an important thing that you just touched upon, because I think that just kind of goes into overall life. Yeah. Right? It's like, you're always, many of us have gone through those moments where we just tell ourselves that we're not good enough, or why am I even here?
Imposter
like, what am I
syndrome,
doing? It just takes you over, Like, I even had a moment where I had to go to do a meeting at Ilani Palace. Oh, wow. And then like kind of go into the throne room and like talk about stuff. And then I remember Auntie Miley Meyer was there, and she saw me in the distance, and I couldn't walk past the gate. I was just like, I'm just going to stroll back and forth, just kind of walk. So I was pacing. And all of a sudden one of the other aunties was like, "Hey, what you doing? Why are you here?" Like, "Oh, I got a meeting." She's like, "Come, we're going inside." I was like, "I'll be there, Auntie. I'll be there. I'm kind of gathering myself right now." Because I was at that moment, same thing. Like, why am I here? Yeah. I'm just a Kailua boy. Yeah. Haven't done very much yet, but I'm here being invited to this session to talk about sacredness of the Ilani Palace. And so I'm just like, why am I even here? Like, once I step through here, I'm like, I've shown up, right? But I think that's how many of us kind of find ourselves in those moments of questioning, like, why am I even here? Yeah. Am I even good enough? But like you said, like, you just have to make sure that you believe in yourself, because you have so many other people believing in you. Yeah. But it doesn't matter unless you believe in yourself.
Very rarely see yourself the way others see you. Yeah. Even anytime I talk about being nervous about starting a mural, or like if I'm questioning like if the job I did was really good art or not, every time I talk about it, people are like, you're insane. Like, you're Shar, you're Punky Aloha. Like, you've done all this. How could you possibly not think you're great?
Yeah.
And I just like, very rarely do we see ourselves in that light, It could be a humble thing, a very humility thing, like that I think is ingrained in a lot of us. You just have to kind of push through and hey, if these people thought I was good enough to hire for this or ask or invite me to be in this space, there's got to be something there, and I'm just gonna find out, see what it is, you know.
I think it goes back to going back to your work. You use a lot of the female figures too. A lot of your work is mostly female. I mean, all the work that we got from you are all the female ones too. But again, it goes, like I mentioned, like being seen, feeling represented.
Sure.
You know, and even like just the color palette feels like Hawaii itself. Was that an intention for you to like focus on the female figure and like have that kind of?
Always. Yeah. I mean, again, like, so my background in traditional art comes from spending countless hours drawing female figures, mostly male figures too, but the female figure is what taught me anatomy. And so I think there's just always been a love for the human body. And I think drawing female figures, I've always kind of seen myself in the characters that I draw. Like, when people are like, are they friends of yours? And like, some of them are my friends. I love to draw like the people I know, the aunties in my life, my friends from school, but a lot of them are just different facets of my personality. And really, like I said, like, creating the world that you want for me meant like, okay, I want to draw the art that I want to see, and art that makes me happy, art that I connect to, because connecting to culture is very healing for me, and it's brought me to like the happiest place I've ever been. So I want to just put that on the paper and then share with everybody, and hopefully everyone feels good too, Hopefully it makes people feel healed.
Kind of going on the other side of that, just with everything anyone does, there's always some kind of criticism.
Yes. I've been criticized.
Yeah. I mean, we get that too, So how do you personally deal with the criticism?
Okay, and I'm not perfect at this, which I think it happens. I falter from this, but I love to tell people, and I need to preach it to myself sometimes, that criticism is an opportunity for growth. And art school really prepared me for that, because of course every week you're constantly putting up this artwork that you've spent 40 hours on, and you put it on a wall, and the entire class gets to destroy it or build it up. And the teacher's like, I've been sent home. Well, I haven't been sent home, but I've gone home crying after critiques because of the teacher just kind of breaking it down. But then you calm yourself down, you relook at your art, you think about the critique, and you think like, oh, maybe they're right. Maybe I need to like stop being so precious and learn how to grow from this. So I look at criticism as like free education. You know what I mean? Like, even if it's someone who has no understanding of art, my husband, like, I constantly showing him artwork, and if he doesn't get it right away, then I'm like, okay, then no one's gonna get it. Then I need to not be offended by that. I got to think like, okay, how can we make this better? And I think it gives us stronger work. Yeah.
No, I see the same thing, because, when you do a criticism, it's like, it takes a while to get over that.
Yeah,
initial.
It hurts a little bit.
It hurts a bit. It stings a bit. I can't.
Sting.
Sometimes people ask me, like, doesn't it? I always tell people, don't listen to other people's opinions or perceptions of you. But it always draws back to that whole Olelo no iau, I ka olelo no keola, I ka olelo no mokumake. Like, in words there's life, and words there's death. Words hurt, Like, I'm not gonna say like it. Even when you criticize, it's like it does sting, but I think just like absorbing that, and then like flipping it around. One takes practice. Like,
it does take practice.
You have to kind of build up that resiliency and that, and main thing, you have the support system. I can't get over how important having a support system is.
Exactly.
One of the projects that you worked on, which I thought was really awesome, was the one at Disney for Epcot. Oh. And I gotta say, my favorite piece that you did was Ursula.
Oh, I love Ursula.
And I was just like, that is a good piece, a cool piece. What did it make you feel like? I thought that was such a huge opportunity to even be able to do that work, and how that even happened.
like many things, I'm not really sure. I get opportunities all the time that I'm just like, I will ask the art director or the business owner, like, how did you even hear of me?
Yeah.
I don't know. I put my artwork out on for social media and for the world to see, and sometimes people gravitate to it. I had done something for Pixar and Disney for their social media, like the year before, I think.
Okay.
I had done fan art of the lava
Oh,
short.
yeah.
So
Okay.
I think that was the first time I had been asked by Disney to do something for them, art related. And because the experience went so well, that team, those art directors passed my name on to other people. So
Awesome.
I've done a few things now for Disney where I'm in the meeting. I'm like, can I just ask you how you know me? Like, oh, so and so worked with you. They said you did a great job. You knocked it out of the park. So we wanted to try and work with you. So I think that also speaks to when you're given these opportunities,
Yeah.
treat them with the respect that they
Yeah.
deserve and love them and do your best work. And, that'll sprout new opportunities. You never know.
Yeah,
You never know.
And I think that's a important thing for people to realize too, is that whatever opportunity comes your way, you got to be able to just go for it.
Yeah.
Because even though sometimes it can feel like, why am I even being asked to do this? Like, I can't do that.
Yeah.
That's not what I do. It's like
Yeah.
I don't do all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Like, I kind of stay in my lane.
Yeah.
But then when the opportunity arrives, it's like, are you gonna take it or not? And
I always say take it.
Yep, me too. I say you just go for it.
Yeah.
Go for broke, they always say, right? Because you don't know what other opportunity is gonna come, and that's the fact that they keep coming back to you.
Yeah.
And I share with this with our past guest with Elijah. I was just like, it just goes back to the values that we were raised on.
Yeah.
Is that the people you come across, the places you go across, make sure you lead them better.
Yeah. Exactly.
Make sure you're always you work hard, you listen, but then you also make sure the place is left better than you found it.
Exactly.
And I think that's kind of, this shows that's what you do when you work with people. People feel like, yeah, we feel good about this.
It was good. And I think, I always believe that you need to greet opportunity with preparation. So when those opportunities arise, make sure that you are ready to jump into it and give your all, give your best. I think that's goes into, of course, like honing in on your craft, learning your craft, but also being ready in that you are in a confident state of mind to jump in with, some of the bigger companies or whatever these opportunities look like for you. Just dealing with the doubt that you have, just closing your ears a little bit and then just jumping in, being ready.
Yeah, I think that's something that I've had to be prepared myself sometimes when I get approached by certain things. Just be ready.
Be ready.
Because it shows. I think that just comes with experience too. So, and that's kind of leads me to, because we have a lot of great talented artists in Hawaii.
Tons. Tons.
And I think a lot of them, or I know a lot of them, look up to you because they see your work everywhere. So for a young artist who kind of is trying to figure out their own path that they want to take, what kind of advice do you have for them?
For young artists, I always say draw. I think, if you don't love drawing, if you don't love creating, it might not be the path for you. I think you have to just really love it, and understand that you might want to learn the basics. You might want to learn kind of the rules of art so you can break them, and just keep going forward. Keep learning, keep growing, and know that you'll get there one day. It'll be your moment at some point. Just be ready for it when it comes.
Yeah.
And when it comes, I love to remind people to malama the people that are coming up. When you make it, remember to lift up our community, for everybody, water that community, because there's so many opportunities. And I think the world is noticing how talented Hawaii is.
Yeah.
So remember that, when you make it, remember that there's going to be people coming up and you were once there, and how do we help that community to continue to grow?
Oh, that's so awesome. And I think that's a great way to end our segment, because the Coup Project podcast is all about uplifting others, helping others stand tall. And I think you just hit it right there of what it means to lift others up.
Yeah.
Like remember to malama those who do look up to you.
Yeah, of course.
And make sure that you're also giving them the tools and giving them the resources and giving them the support that they need to continue them to be uplifted.
Absolutely.
So, Shar, just mahalo so much for your time and,
course.
and all the work you do. As I mentioned again, we love it. And I'm looking forward for more adventures that you're going to go
More
on,
adventures,
and seeing what you do next. So
Right
mahalo
on.
for your time.
Mahalo for having me.
Aloha.
Aloha.
All right. Cool.
Woo! We did
We
it!
did it!
Oh, yes!
We're the Kailua connection now.
That's what's up.
Yeah. Aloha, Shar, mahalo for having,
Mahalo for having me on my podcast.